오래전부터 한국 K9에 대해 긍정적인 뉴스가 자주 나왔는데요. 이제는 아예 대놓고 제일이라고 지켜세우네요. 오늘은 며칠 전에 거의 100만 명의 구독자를 자랑하는 어느 채널에서 방송한 아주 핫한 내용을 올려봤습니다. 그럼 함께 보실까요?
The 155mm K9 Thunder is combat proven against North Korea. Today, it's an extremely successful vehicle with over 1,700 having been produced. Each one costs about $2.9 million per unit, so you can almost trade one in for the cost of a single home in America. The K9 has many of the same capabilities that were originally supposed to be in the United States prototype XM 2001 Crusader, but that $11 billion program in the United States was canceled. With its autoloader and new fire control system, it has an insanely high rate of fire for artillery, 10 rounds per minute. That's 4 rounds faster per minute than the old technology. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi even hopped onto the K9 artillery for a quick spin around the block. The amount of nations opening up factories to produce their own licensed version of the K9 Thunder is incredible. Turkey, Estonia, Australia, India, Finland, Norway, Poland, Egypt all want a piece of that South Korean burst artillery. 624 of these will be produced inside of Poland. Each license South Korea sells to a foreign country, they get about $1.7 billion, and their defense company Hanwha helps set up the manufacturing franchises. So what is it about South Korean artillery technology that makes everybody want it? The development of this weapon tells us a lot about the South Korean people's history, their culture, and what matters to them. It evolved under the intense pressure to counter increasingly radical North Korean dictators. The MIL-12 560H armor on the K9 is unique to Korea. It's actually made by their Korean POSCO Iron and Steel Company. Only their domestic version gets this special steel. You may have never heard of POSCO, but in 2010, they were actually the world's largest steel manufacturing company by market value, and they were named the entire world's 146th largest corporation by Fortune Global 500. POSCO currently operates 2 integrated steel mills in South Korea. Since this was domestically developed armor steel plates that were being used for the first time, the South Korean military researchers decided to produce and compare both imported and domestic materials to reduce the risk. In the meantime, Samsung began to train and employ master craftsman welders whose skills were verified by the U.S. Aberdeen Military Research Facility. U.S. researchers verified that the South Korean steel plates perform better than imported armor plates. It wouldn't be too long until the K9 Thunder saw its first combat during the surprise bombardment by North Korea in November 2010. The 7th Artillery Republic of Korea Marine Corps were given orders to counterattack. One of their K9 cannons experienced a shell that got stuck in the barrel from a faulty misfired charge. They were operating the AN-TPQ-37 radar system to locate enemy targets and incoming fire, but they quickly realized they lacked the adequate number of radar units to sufficiently cover the long, fortified North Korean coastline that the Marines were facing. 3 of their 4 K9 vehicles were hit during the surprise initial salvo from North Korea. It damaged internal parts and triggered an explosion in one vehicle. No casualties were suffered. They were able to successfully return counterfire, and it's a miracle that World War III didn't start from this. South Korea's Agency for National Security Planning, which is like their CIA, had been gathering information from North Korean defectors that painted a threat that couldn't be dismissed. It indicated that North Korea's goals in the event of war were to use overwhelming firepower and speed of action to conduct a one-blow, non-stop attack, with poison bullets thrown into the mix for good measure. Remember when I mentioned weapons of mass destruction? Well, that includes chemical weapons, not just nukes. And it was back then that North Korea began major shifts that favored chemical warfare. For example, many of the armored vehicles that North Korea produced were no longer armored personnel carriers, but rather self-propelled artillery suitable for the delivery of chemical weapons. They could fire out these new weapons. Now, the reason that this is important for the development of the K9 Thunder is because it informs one of the most important but often overlooked features of the self-propelled artillery vehicle that you can probably guess. Its MBC ability, the ability to protect and pressurize the interior of the hull to be safe from chemical weapons. So, the North Korean shift to biological chemical weapons did not come as a surprise to the Republic of Korea in the South because Kim Il-sung had issued back in 1967 a declaration of chemicalization, whose aim was to develop an independent chemical industry capable of weapons production, something that coincided with a 1979 US intelligence report that stated that North Korea had at least developed defensive chemical warfare capability, but that capability for independent production would be expanded to be able to load onto artillery dispersal shells. So what kind of threat are we talking about? Surely the backward regime can't be really hoped to win in a modern battlefield with chemical weapons, can they? Well, a study from the RAND Corporation reports that South Korea identified not 1 or 2, but 8 factories that can make a whopping 5,000 tons of chemical weapons a year in peacetime, and they can bump that up to 12,000 in the case of war. Meanwhile, another research center tells us that North Korea has 11 production and storage facilities, along with 13 research and development centers, 2 testing ranges, and 4 military bases equipped, all of these with chemical weapons. This is why the K9 has a pressurized seal hull. It's very likely that the inner lining of the crew's compartments have neutron shielding to protect against the radiation from nuclear explosions, as well as CBRN positive pressure and air conditioning systems, which can also be found in modern armored vehicles. The way NBC overpressure systems work is that they're essentially pressurized air blowers that blow air in from the outside of the vehicle through special filters. The armored vehicles are usually never perfectly airtight, so what happens is there's some air leaks inevitably throughout the vehicles and small holes. However, the air blowers have sufficient capacity to keep a positive pressure inside the vehicle of filtered air, keeping the crew safe. So what happens if the K9 spends its 48 shells and runs out of ammo during a chemical attack? Does the lowest enlisted private have to run back through the gas into the rear and reload? No, the K-10 armored ammunition resupply vehicle was designed to meet the demands of modern warfare by providing efficient and automated ammunition support. With a shared chassis, power pack, and suspension, the K-10 ensures seamless logistical support and tactical coordination with the K-9. The K-10 is rated to automatically transfer over 70,000 units of ammunition at a rate of 12 rounds per minute, and it's compatible with various types of ammunition. It even allows for selection of specific projectiles and charging the required types of shells even in darkness. It basically just hooks up to the K9 and sends the shells through without having to get out of the vehicle. Right now, the South Korean K9 Thunder is the most popular tracked self-propelled howitzer system with over 2,000 units in service around the globe. It has over 52% of the market share, with current variants operating in Turkey, and the Indian Army, who's a prolific buyer of Russian equipment, actually adopted the K9 themselves.
시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 구독과 좋아요도 부탁드립니다.